Moments. Andrew Bridgen joins us. He's Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire. Andrew, your seat is just outside Leicester, which has, let's face it, to all intents and purposes, been in some version of lockdown pretty much the entire past year, and is also on that list of the guidance that was issued for 8 different areas across the country, with regarded as hotspots for the Indian variant, which were updated on Friday on the government website, suggesting that people should avoid non-essential travel in and out of those hotspots and within them, even suggesting meeting outdoors, not indoors. Now, this was seen as a possibility of a local lockdown being implemented without actually bothering to tell local MPs, local councils, public health officials, or indeed, it would appear, even local people. Is this just the latest example of the abject chaos at the top of government?
It's not a good look, Julia. The fact is that no one appeared to know about this lockdown, which makes you think it's more cock-up than conspiracy. I think what it is an attempt to raise awareness of the virus in the hotspots.
How do you raise awareness by updating a website and not telling anyone?
Well, there has been plenty of publicity around the so-called, and I don't like using these sort of names by geographic area, the so-called Indian variant. And the fact is that the answer is to increase the vaccination rates in those areas. I mean, sadly, we do know that people more likely to have travelled to the Indian subcontinent who may have been in contact with people who've brought back the virus tend to be in areas with the lower take-up of the vaccine. I think there is some evidence that the so-called Indian variant is more transmissible between younger people. And if you've got multi-generational households with a lower vaccine uptake of older people, there could be a problem, but there's no evidence whatsoever that those of us who've been vaccinated are at any more risk from the so-called Indian variant than any other variant. Indeed, for those of us who've been fortunate enough to have the Oxford AstraZeneca, we are particularly well protected against this variant. So there's really no reason for any further lockdowns. And as you announced this morning, people now over the age of 30 are eligible to come forward and have the vaccine. A lot of our vulnerable groups now will have been vaccinated twice, and most will be out of the 2-week period to be fully protected. So we're on the way out. And quite honestly, there's a lot of feeling on the backbenches, which was subdued for the local elections, which basically was telling the Prime Minister, don't think about keeping us in any lockdown measures after the 21st of June. The roadmap has been cautious enough.
Well, again, I think you know where I stand on this. Well, originally the guidance was on the government website 12 days ago for Bolton and Blackburn with Darwen. On Friday, the guidance then was expanded to apply to Burnley, Bedford, Kirklees, Leicester, close to your constituency, Hounslow, and North Tyneside. But the new advice wasn't made public, just until someone pointed it out to a journalist, I think, on Monday. No one had told local health leaders, no one had told local MPs or local councils that this advice was there. And yet, of course, once this was made public, there was a real concern that suddenly, ahead of this bank holiday weekend, ahead of the half term, very few places people can travel abroad. Lots of people wary of travelling abroad, the cost of testing and the like.
Well,
people wanting to have holidays at home. People cancelling bookings, cancelling trips, cancelling. Yet again, public sector making decisions, doing it badly. Massive impact on people's businesses and people's plans to see family and the like, and just sort of shrugging their shoulders and just getting on with it. But there never seems to be any penalty for people who do their job this badly.
Oh, no, it is an accountability problem. I mean, it's interesting. I think a contact of mine, Tony Rowe at the BBC Nottingham, tweeted out that actually there was a football match. I think it was Tottenham Hotspur versus Leicester in Leicester on Sunday, attended by 8,000 people, and none of them had got the message that you weren't supposed to travel into and out of Leicester, which was make a rather a mockery. The answer is the vaccine's working. We're going to get out on the 21st of all the lockdown measures. We do have a few hotspots, but the hotspots, let's put them in perspective. I saw these figures last week. My constituency's COVID rate last week was 7 cases per 100,000. And given the population of North West Leicestershire, just about 108,000. So we may have 8 cases in the whole constituency.
And again, that case rate is way lower than the national average.
And well, I think 11 was the average. It's not that much lower, but when you get down to sort of single digits, I mean, it's pretty low anyway. I think Leicester was at 40 a week ago. But I mean, we'd have cut our right arm off to have figures of Leicester being at 40 any time in the last 12 months, because, you know, it's been up around 400-600 at times. So we're making good progress. The vaccine's working. We're down to 30-year-olds having their first jab. And I'm urging the government, what we need to be the younger generation, I think, to get them, because they obviously, their perceived risk of getting COVID or suffering any severe side effects are minimal. We really want to try and use the single dose vaccines on them, because I think the chance of getting them to go out and get vaccinated twice is rare. So if we can get them to come up once, get vaccinated, and then also they catch up with the rest of us oldies who will have had two jabs by then.
Yeah, I'm having my second one tomorrow, indeed. In terms of the general handling of the pandemic, Dominic Cummings was the Prime Minister's chief advisor until last November, until obviously a big falling out with him and his fiancée, Carrie Simons. We know that played a big role. He is going to give evidence to this Joint Select Committee hearing this morning. It starts at 9:30. We're going to be covering it here on the show. It's expected to be bombshell evidence. He's basically firing off on all cylinders. Everyone's a complete idiot. Everyone's incompetent. Everyone got everything wrong apart from him. How damaging are allegations that the Prime Minister talked about the bodies being piled high, referring to the virus and saying, calling it Kung Flu, and saying, look, apparently, according to claims today, apparently he offered to be injected with it live on TV to show it was nothing to be scared of. And basically, at one point, he's claimed, he said, look, it's only killing 80-year-olds. We don't want a lockdown. How damaging are all those allegations, do you think, coming specifically from Dominic Cummings?
They're annoying. I think for someone like Dominic Cummings, who thinks that he has the pulse of the nation and detects the mood, I think he's seriously misjudged this one. And I don't think any of us would like private conversations at times of stress to be, while we're deliberating on issues where, let's face it, when Boris has to make a decision whether we're going to lockdown or we stay out of lockdown, there is no non-damaging answer. The lockdown's deeply damaging. And I think, you know, the trials and tribulations of making that decision will be vindicated later when it's already being vindicated when we're seeing the number of young people suffering from mental health problems. I saw a program, a report about the huge rise in young women, girls who are self-harming. I mean, we haven't paid the price yet for the lockdown. I think we're going to be paying the cost of the lockdown for longer than we have the virus. Indeed, I've pushed number 10 many months ago to come up with a plan to get over the lockdown. We use the lockdown to get over. And I think when people see that the balance of risk and reward of the lockdowns, it was not as clear cut as Mr. Cummings might have pointed out. I mean, I want a Prime Minister like Boris who weighs up the options carefully and realises he's making those huge decisions, not just jumps into whatever direction Mr. Cummings says. But of course, Cummings was at the centre of all of this, and I just wonder whose interest he believes he's working in now, because he's certainly not working in the British people's interest.
Finally, I just want to ask you about that report into Islamophobia. An independent report into whether Islamophobia is a problem in the Conservative Party has found that, yes, there is evidence of anti-Muslim sentiments in local associations and among some activists, but that the party is not institutionally racist. That's the verdict of Professor Swaran Singh. Does the Conservative Party, in the same way that the Labour Party clearly has had a problem with anti-Semitism, does the Conservative Party have a problem with anti-Muslim feelings?
No, not at all. I actually was speaking about this last night. No, the Conservative Party reaches into all parts of our communities. I've never come across any in 11 years as a member of Parliament in the Parliamentary Party. And as far as my association is concerned, in my constituency, 2/3 of all the people now vote Conservative. So we're certainly the most inclusive party in my part of the country by a long stretch of imagination. You know, a couple of weeks ago in North West Leicestershire, we had 11 elections on the same day, 11 local elections. The Conservative Party won every one of those. You don't win elections like that unless your vote reaches into all sectors of the of the community.
And yet, the Professor Singh said, there was a perception that the party was Islamophobic, and part of that was down to, say, the London mayoral election race run by Zach Goldsmith a few years back, which certainly I certainly had issues with and raised with the Zach Goldsmith at the time. But also that 2018 Telegraph newspaper column Boris Johnson wrote about the ban on the burqa. He referred to the wearing of the burqa making women look like letterboxes and bank robbers.
But Julia, I commented on that story. And if you actually read that story, Boris was very clear that women have got the right to wear whatever they want.
Oh, that was Julia, my main issue with the article was that he was defending the burqa.
He was, and I mean, you've got the right. You can go around, dressed as Ronald McDonald all day if you want to, but I've got to have the right to laugh, haven't I? I've got to have the right to laugh as well. You
realise some people will say you can't compare the burqa with being dressed up in fancy dress.
It's the right. Well, it's the right to wear whatever you want. In this country, you have various freedoms. You can wear what you want.
But apart from that,
colour your hair whatever.
But I don't have the right to not wear a face mask and cover my face. I mean, it's a bit rich, isn't it? You can wear what you want, but you have to cover your face.
I'm hoping you will have very shortly on the 21st of June, which is why it is so important we get all those freedoms back that have been taken away. Okay. These have been draconian times. We've seen draconian measures. Freedoms have been given up very, very freely, and it is a little concerning that people don't realise how hard fought freedoms are to get, and how much of the world would love to have those freedoms, and yet we give them up without consideration. But we must ensure they come back on the 21st of June, else there will be problems, and much more problems than Dominic Cummings, I can assure you.
Indeed. I couldn't agree with you more on the final line. 8:19 is the time. Thank you very much indeed.